Hi, everybody. It's Susan, and I'm back very late again. I've actually missed a moon recording for you. I really had wanted to do something for you about the new moon, or rather, sorry, the full moon in Aquarius, which was on the 1st of August. And my life has just been completely crazy, so I haven't been able to do nearly as much as I had wanted to. And I just wanted to leave you with maybe a few thoughts around that time, the 1st of August, because we're still in the thick of this energy, and it will, for me, it continues right into September. And so really it's about this sense of being yourself, being fully yourself, not imitating. Very important for me, this connection between Leo and Aquarius that brings us right into this Leo new moon. It's really about being yourself fully. It's been like 35 years or something that I've been on this kind of spiritual path, yoga, and, all the things that might come along tangentially to that. And you see so many people who try to imitate their teachers, or they imitate people they admire, or they imitate somebody they think is farther along on the spiritual path. And we are so unique. And this is certainly what the message of this Leo new moon is. We're so unique in the way that we show up in our lives, that when we try and imitate and try and fit into a mold that somebody else has already fit into, we don't fulfill our own potential. Now, Aquarius, I'm just going to briefly touch on that Aquarius, because the energy of Aquarius is about this, social connection that we have. And there's this kind of vacillation between wanting to fit in and wanting to stand out. And this is why the sun doesn't work so well in Aquarius, because the sun is all about the self, the solar self, and our identity. And Aquarius is all about fitting in. And so Aquarius kind of has to force itself out of the crowd to be so different, and yet paradoxically always ends up being really focused on, some type of group, connecting in some way to some belief or some type of group. And so it kind of builds up the ego. And that's not what we're here to understand. It's not about ego. It's about understanding our unique purpose. So that brings us nicely to this Leo new moon. I won't talk much more about that Aquarius full moon. The moment has passed, but we're still in the energy. So I want to really touch on this quality of self, of the person that we are here to be. And it's not about personality that we're here to be, because that's changing all the time. That even changes according to who we're talking to or what we're doing. But it's really about the being that we're supposed to be. It's so unique. And I see hundreds of people. Every time I see people, it's just fascinating how incredibly unique their expression of the chart is, even when there's many elements that overlap with other people's charts, and still there's something incredibly unique. So with this energy of Leo is really about shining. It's about showing up, but in this really beautiful childlike way. So it's not with reference to ego, because that's a manifestation of Leo that is much more what you could call insecure. And really with the true energy of Leo, it's just radiant, and it's radiant in the way that young children are before they realize who they are, before they're even really aware of their appearance or of their of anything about them, or getting feedback from the adults around them. And so this is where we're headed, ideally, in our journey, is to try and fully show up and to reveal whatever it is that we're here to express to other people, and not to feel that we have to follow a particular pattern. And this is a huge thing in our generation, in our times, especially in the Kali Yuga, where lying and cheating and deception is just rife. There's much more dishonesty than honesty in the Kali Yuga. Very difficult to discern truth from lies. And so we're really in a really beautiful depiction of that energy when we've got this 23-degree new moon, which means that the moon and the sun are conjunct at in the 23rd degree. So it's 23 degrees, 17 minutes of a degree. the moon and the sun in Leo, and they are in a really tight square to Uranus, which is arriving at its 23rd degree, and Uranus will be retrograding in this 23rd degree, and that will be around the end of August. I think it's the 28th that Uranus will station retrograde. So this is as far as Uranus gets, and it just happens to be really strongly square. So then Uranus being in the house of Taurus, that the values, the things that we esteem, the things that we find important, the things that we feel secure with, what we need to sustain ourselves, that's ruled by Venus, which happens to be quite close to this new moon. So it's about, it's a little bit less than 5 degrees of a conjunction. That's still a really interesting and worthwhile conjunction, especially because that Venus is ruling the Uranus that's in a strong square here. And she's also squaring Jupiter, which is almost into the 15th degree, and Jupiter will retrograde. So also at the 15th degree, and that will be on the 4th of September, when Venus herself at 12 degrees of Leo will station direct. So lots of really interesting tie-ins here, and that has been the case. I've been finding these last few weeks extremely chaotic. It feels like everything kind of pulling in aspects of other periods in a way that's extremely disruptive. And I think this new moon kind of sums it up really beautifully. So it's an interesting disruption to the pattern. Now, these are fixed signs, and fixed signs are not too keen on disruption. It doesn't mean that they won't shift or that things can't change, but it's just not really, they like stability. The energy of the fixed sign is about stability and continuity. And so if we think about this as, say, Uranus in Taurus, already very disruptive energy for the last 5 years, 5.5 years almost. And in that square to the sun, a very powerful sun, which is in its rulership in Leo. And then we have this quality of what are we disrupting here? We're disrupting something that is personal to us. Perhaps it's a belief, perhaps it's a sense of who we are. The way I've been thinking about this is like shaking up what we consider to be our sacred cows. Are we genuinely willing to let go of what it is that we believe? And this is important throughout life, to kind of upgrade our beliefs, upgrade our thoughts and opinions around things. We have a very interesting semi-sextile from Venus to Mercury, from Venus to Mars, which is already quite shaking things up in terms of values and what we think. That's a very strong Mercury there in Virgo, conjunct Mars, so quite active. They never get completely conjunct at this point in Virgo. And Virgo, Mercury itself will also be stationing retrograde by the end of the month, by about the 23rd of August. And that is also, that Mercury is also in conjunct Chiron, and Venus herself is trining Chiron very strongly. And so it does seem like there's something here about what we value, how we've seen ourselves, the way that we think about things, the way that we take action, because that Mars is also ruling. So Mercury's in its rulership in Virgo and exalted, and the Mars is also ruling that Chiron, as well as the North Node, but we're going to leave that out of this for just for now, for a minute. And so this is really, for me, a lot about what do we really believe? What can we question about our beliefs? And do you have beliefs that and opinions? Because Leo can be very opinionated. So can Taurus, very stubborn in the opinions. Mars can be very supercilious in a Mercury-ruled Virgo. But this is really about understanding where we need to, sacrifice our desires or our needs. And if we go back to that full moon on the 1st in Aquarius, do we need to sacrifice something for the collective? Have we been sacrificing our own beliefs or our own needs and desires for fitting in, for the sake of fitting in? Or on the contrary, is it for the sake of being different, but therefore wanting to be seen and be recognized? That's very Aquarian, is this kind of kind of paradox about wanting to fit in so badly, but at the same time wanting to look different to at least some group, try and stand out in a unique way. So what is out of sync? What is out of sync with what we are finding in our own expression of life compared to what we feel around us? Now, this notion of questioning our sacred cows, it's not easy for a lot of people. This energy of fixity can make that difficult even for people who normally have a lot of ease in terms of their natal chart. For example, I have a lot of mutability in my chart, so this fixity doesn't really usually occur in my life, but I've been finding it really difficult to know what's going on, like what do I believe and what it is that I hold dear. I really have to keep checking in regularly, daily almost, to try and kind of reestablish my bearings. And I'm doing this in the context of going through my things and preparing for a big move. And I don't have a specific destination because I haven't found a place to live, but I've decided in any case, I have to just get out and move and leave. So, so it's kind of, this is one of my, as a Cancer rising, Cancer moon, is one of my sacred cows, is having that special place. And so it's something that you question, where you can see that by having a fixed idea of something that you feel you need or that you've always thought you've needed actually keeps you stuck in an old pattern, and it's a way of stopping you from growing. Now, where we have the opportunity for growth is in letting go, or at the very least questioning why is that important? Is it genuinely important? Is it something that we really need to hold on to? Is it helpful that we're holding on to that? You know, like if you consider yourself, I hear this a lot on social media and very different places, where people will say, I'm a lifelong Democrat, or I'm a lifelong Republican, or conservative, or Labor Party member, or whatever, wherever you come from. And if that's true, there's a real problem, because that is just adhering to an ideology, and that is this Aquarian energy of dogma. And that's not helpful, because that's still not thinking for yourself. And when you're not thinking for yourself, remember that you can become very, very vulnerable to manipulation when you don't question your thoughts, when you don't question your beliefs, when you don't question your personal choices and the things that you believe you need to feel comfortable. It leaves you vulnerable. That's a kind of a paradox, but it is definitely worth reflecting on. Anyway, so have a think about that. Have a think about what's going on in your life. Now, this moon, this new moon is in a trine, just over 3 degrees with the North Node, and that means it's in a sextile with the South Node. And so we're still pulling in this energy, again, the Aries energy, just like with Chiron, pulling in this energy of where am I going? What is it that I need here? And what do I need to let go of? This is the Venus ruled South Node in Libra that asks, what do I need to let go of in terms of how I'm trying to accommodate or find a balance in my life? There is always a space for harmony. We always want to find harmony, but it should not come at our own expense, and it shouldn't come at the expense of anyone else either. So it's, Libra, it's not a zero-sum game. Aries is much more of a zero-sum game. That's not what we're asking for here, but Libra is about finding that middle ground. It's about finding a happy medium where it's a win-win. And so when you can have that energy, and I hope that also globally we can find this energy, we can, find a way of living together in this kind of Aquarian energy, the energy of collectivity, that allows us also to express ourselves the way we want to and allow others to get on with their lives too. And so some of our sacred cows may need to be questioned around what we believe others should do, what we think is right and what is wrong. This is the Mercury ruled Virgo. Mercury is very powerful in Virgo because it wants to really understand. it's not about collecting data and just knowing facts and figures. It's really about understanding. And the energy of Virgo is always connected to healing. And so is Chiron in Aries, understanding the self, understanding the energy of healing. And so when Mercury is in conjunct Chiron, that's also called a quincunx, but it's really strongly in conjunct Chiron at this time, then we're going to get this option or this opportunity to see what it is that we need to heal in the way that we think about things, in the way we communicate things, in the way that we connect with others, and in the way that we understand how it is that we want to make choices going forward, because this is Aries after all. This is the North Node and Chiron in Aries, asking us to reflect on how we operate in the future, how we operate in our personal future. And all of that in a really interesting harmony with this new moon in Leo, asking us to really show up as just as we are. And now we still have Pluto in a broad square, still very active, the Pluto squaring the nodes. That's all the way through till November, really powerfully. And just in case you think that's going to be a relief, don't forget that in October we've got eclipses coming. So that's going to shake things up again. And so this is an opportunity to keep questioning the sense of the past compared to the sense of the future. This is where it really stuck out for me. A dear friend of mine who's an absolutely brilliant astrologer, somebody I look up to immensely here in Brussels, my senior, my guide. And he was pointing out to me that Pluto is exactly where it's on my ascendant, and it's exactly where Saturn and the North Node, there was an eclipse at that point on the day I arrived in Brussels. And it was that kind of gave me the confidence to know that it's time also now to leave. This is what Pluto is doing in my life. And perhaps you're experiencing something quite big like that in your life with Pluto squaring the nodes. It's going to be very much about a different future for you, something very different. Pluto does not square the nodes very often. And so this is a particularly interesting and unique configuration that we have, especially on this axis, the cardinal axis, the action axis between Aries and Libra. So have a think what it is that you're ready to give up. What sacred cow are you willing to give up? I dare say, I don't want to say sacrifice because that sounds brutal. We just want to let them go. Let them go. Let me just check my notes before I move on sign by sign. And let's see. Oh, and I wrote down here. You can always try and fail. You can always start over. You can always change your mind. It's a new moon after all. So the 16th of August, I don't remember if I mentioned that. I got so excited about Leo. 16th of August, 9:39 in AM, Greenwich Mean Time or Universal Time. And that means that it will be in New York about 5 hours before that. So it'll be the middle of the night. And it will be in the middle of the afternoon for our friends, or late afternoon for our friends in East Asia, Australia, New Zealand, etc. So coming back to these thoughts, you can always try and fail, start over. You can change your mind. You can feel your behavior changing or decide to change your behavior, and you will be succeeding. So just know that these moments of understanding the Chiron, for me also, Chiron represents, especially in Aries, where we are sabotaging our own well-being, our own help, our own success. We'll just call it that, sacrificing or messing up our own potential here because of what we believe about ourselves, because of something that we've absorbed from somebody else. Let it go and start over again. And that is called success. So failure is built into success. Don't forget that. You always have to figure it out. Talk to anybody who's a real success, and they'll tell you all about their failures. So this is to wrap this up. I say where you are now may feel uncomfortable, Lord knows, or you might feel stuck. This might get you unstuck, by the way. I think this is quite a good energy for unsticking ourselves with a Uranus squaring the moon. I mean, if it doesn't, I just don't know what will. So this is where we want to remember that life is constantly transforming, constantly changing. As you just started listening to me a few minutes back, trillions of your cells have transformed just in doing nothing, just in listening. You're constantly changing, and so is life. So is everything around you. So carry on, move on, get up, and try something new. And this is a brilliant time to do that. Now, just after this period of time, the moon is going to shift into an opposition with Saturn. So just hours after. So the moon will move into Virgo and be opposite Saturn. And that can be really interesting too, because you can start to realize what you need to do just yourself, what you need to take care of. And that might come through communication as well, or your own personal healing. So again, that energy of Virgo connecting with healing. And we have Mars opposing Neptune. We have Uranus in a trine to Neptune broadly. And that's also extremely powerful in terms of our potential commitment spiritually to ourselves or to our goals, our spiritual goals. But when Mars is opposite Neptune, we're not necessarily sure what our goals are, what it is that we want to do. So it may be for the couple of weeks after this new moon that things are very unclear. And I should think that also because Mercury is going to go retrograde, and it's been in its shadow since the 4th of August, meaning it will come back to that point at the 15th of September when it moves out of that degree point. The Venus retrograde, the Saturn retrograde, it doesn't really matter for the outer planets in terms of retrograde, but those more personal planets and the ones that we like, Venus and Mercury particularly, those might have us feeling like things are not getting going, or they're not clear, or they're not working out. Don't worry, let it go. It's only a couple of weeks. And I think you're going to find that by mid-September and certainly by early October, that you're going to have a really clear sense of what's going on and which direction that you want to take. So get comfortable with not knowing for now. Get comfortable with not knowing which direction to take. That's Mars opposite Neptune. And also keep in mind that Venus is moving away from the sun. She was on the 13th, so just before this new moon, Venus was Cazimi. That means she was in the heart of the sun, and or we call that under the beams. She's still under the beams for the few days after. So even at the time of this new moon, we're not seeing Venus yet. And let's say in a couple of days after, probably around the 18th, 19th, 20th, by the 20th for sure, she will be far enough away from the sun that she becomes visible now in the morning. So Venus in the morning is all about what it is that we want to do now going forward. Remember, it's Leo. So she's still retrograde, but we see her. So now we can start planning, plan for the future, plan for the things that you want to achieve on your own terms. Let yourself really shine. Enjoy this time of planning, because you have a really glorious support for, with the sun in its, strongest dignity, sun in its rulership in Leo. And then Venus, when she stations direct again, the 4th of September, I think you're going to find that all of those Venusian issues, whether that be issues around relationship or what it is that you really want, the things that you would prefer or dislike, and all the things that you're trying to maybe avoid or move towards, and that has caused you some kind of tension, all of that starts to become more clear to you. But this Venus trining Chiron for me is a profound opportunity to really heal yourself through relationship as well. Heal yourself through even your self-image. We're talking about Aries and Leo, so it's very much to do with what we think of ourselves. And that's always really the biggest obstacle to our happiness. And so certainly Leo is all about being happy and having fun. So when the moon is opposite Saturn, for many of us, that will be an opportunity to just briefly, because it's very fast. It goes very, very fast. It's only a day or so, maybe 2 at the most that you might feel it, especially if you've got degree points there where Saturn and the moon might be traveling around 3, 4, 5 degrees. That's just an opportunity to realize that only you can do this work. The moon opposite Saturn can feel isolated, emotionally isolated, or even physically isolated. Don't let it get you down. Only you can do this work. Pull your socks back up and carry on. All right, let's have a look now at sign by sign how this might be affecting you. We'll start with Aries, just so we can avoid the panic and confusion in the comment section. Here we go. Aries. So Aries, this is happening in your 5th house. I mean, how wonderful is that? You've got Venus in her joy. Venus is happiest in the 5th house. And then on top of that, you've got the sun in its sign of rulership, which is pretty lovely. So I think for Aries, for all the fire signs, this is a really lovely new moon. It's a really brilliant new start in areas of your life that concern your relationships, for sure, potentially children as well, your sense of what it is that you'd like to do to make yourself happy, what you need perhaps in terms of relationships to understand what brings out part of you in relationship. Avoid or be careful of any tendency towards selfishness that might be based on fear of lack. That's because of that Chiron in your 1st house, and in the trine to Venus, there might be this feeling of inadequacy, or a feeling of a little bit worried around the relationship or any relationships, and whether they're valid for you, whether they're still working. You have Mars in the 6th house. Now that's the house where Mars finds its joy. So that's pretty nice. That's your ruler, of course. And so Mars in the 6th with Mercury is keeping you busy in everyday life at this time. This whole lunar cycle will have you being quite busy, working hard, motivated for even things that might be difficult. And then keeping in mind that you've got lovely support in the house of money with Jupiter, except bear in mind also that Jupiter in the 2nd house can spend as fast as it earns. So be careful, because with that Venus and the new moon in the 5th house, you might be feeling quite generous. You might be taking risks on things with Venus retrograde. Just keep some money in your pockets and only bet what you're willing to lose. And that includes in love. Right. I think we'll leave it at that. I won't go too deep into this because I want to make it a bit shorter. I will come back with more about Mercury retrograde in another video. So enjoy this new moon, Aries. I think it's going to give you a lovely new start in relationships and love. And that can also be, by the way, hobbies and even things that might be establishing themselves at work, because the 5th house can also be about entrepreneurship. And you do have Pluto just peeking in one last time in your 10th. Well, you've got Mars and Mercury in your house of work. So I think this could be something really quite nice, especially if you work for yourself. Right. Enjoy all of that. And I'll see you in the next video. So Taurus, you're still blessed with that Jupiter in the 1st house and Uranus. At the very least, Jupiter is making up for having Uranus in the 1st house. And so this is, of course, in a lovely energy of your 4th house, your home, what makes you feel content, what makes you feel happy, what makes you feel secure. And having Venus there already is very, very nice, because that's your ruler. Now, this, of course, is squaring you. So there's some adjustment that you need to make. There's an adjustment that might require some kind of new understanding around your needs or around what's going on at home. This might be something to do with relationships, or it might be something to do with what you need just simply to feel happy, because Venus is kind of a representative of you, and she's squaring Jupiter at this time. And the new moon is squaring that Uranus. So something different, something's changing in you. That's changing how you need to establish what makes you feel secure and happy. This can also be around property. If you're interested in buying property, or if you need to sell property, this could be a very good time to engage in that, except that I think given that Venus is your ruler, she's retrograde, it would be a good idea to wait until Venus goes direct if you're looking to sell. That would depend on your natal chart, I'd say. Only because you'd ideally want Venus to be direct, but then by the time Venus is direct, Mercury will be retrograde. So maybe that doesn't change much anyway. So anyway, if you do have to buy or sell property, it could be very interesting because, in fact, if you are somebody who is aware of the market and you're interested in investing, this could be a great time because you've got Mars in the 5th house taking risks, and you've got a very strong Mercury there as well. That's good for entrepreneurial energy. And I mean, come on, let's face it, Taurus, you're pretty good with the money. So you've got Mercury ruling your 2nd house, and Mercury's there in a very strong dignity in the 5th. So actually, it could be a good time to be buying and selling stuff. Right. So Taurus, you've also got Chiron there in your 12th. That might have you a bit insecure in terms of your unconscious, or in terms of big questions that might kind of filter up from dreams, or from a feeling of what you're afraid of, that you're not able to really communicate with people. And now with Chiron in conjunct this Mercury, there might be something instigating a conversation around that. And it might be around your children. There might be something to do with children that needs to be discussed, something that might need to be expressed or discussed. And that can be actually very healing. We're talking about Mercury and Mars in Virgo, after all. That can be deeply healing. So I'm going to leave it there. Make it short and sweet, Taurus, and I'll see you in the next video. Good luck with all that. So Gemini, we've got this new moon happening in your 3rd house, which is very much in sync with you. That energy of the 3rd house is quite chatty. The moon is always in her joy in the 3rd house. And this is the moon, of course, conjunct the sun in Leo and with Venus right there. So don't look at the degrees. That's you have a look at that from the introduction. The degrees are starting to get messed up because I'm moving the dial here. But it is, of course, we're talking about this new moon in Leo. And the new moon is a few degrees away from that Venus. The new moon is at 23 degrees. And so it's a really lovely time for you to explore issues around how you communicate. This can be business as well, can be commerce or exchanges of all kinds. If you need to buy and sell stuff, this could be a very interesting time. You want to go over your values around communication, around connections with siblings or neighbors or cousins, aunts and uncles and people like that, good friends as well, the kind of people you hang out with. And the 4th house has Mercury, your ruler, in a very strong dignity along with Mars. So there looks like there could be something to do with moving, or with expanding your home, or dealing with something at home. Mars in the 4th can be where you might need to do work, or you might have some kind of issue that comes up that needs resolution. And that Mars is, it's in a trine with Uranus. So there might be something surprising that comes up that needs to be dealt with. I think I forgot to mention that in the opening. This is a really interesting part of this configuration with Mars trine Uranus. Jupiter is trining Mercury, and Jupiter is square, and Uranus is squaring the new moon. Jupiter is squaring Venus. So something from the 12th house, which can be around your unconscious patterns. The 12th house is also the area of loss, and it can also be where we don't do ourselves any favor. It's considered the house of self-undoing or hidden enemies. And so there may be something that you're realizing here, potentially around business or friends, that might require you readjusting, because we've got Venus retrograde now ruling that 12th house, and there might be some readjustment necessary. Now, this can also have something to do with foreigners or foreign lands, faraway places, or even a research project. So we've got the 3rd house. Pluto is in the 8th house, and of course, Jupiter and Uranus in the 12th house. All of those houses are very interesting for working behind the scenes and communicating things, dealing with papers or reports or exams, this kind of thing, and maybe having to redo some things, or edit, or just improve. That can be that. This can be something to do with work, of course, because you've got Saturn there in the 10th house. That's certainly been big on your mind, and you're going to have the moon opposite Saturn from the 4th to 10th. So there might be something with work that shows up in terms of how that affects your home life or your sense of security. Now, Chiron is in the 11th, and Chiron is in a trine to Venus in the 3rd. Chiron is sorting out how you relate to your friends and your future goals, your wishes for the future, your hopes. And Chiron is in the 11th house also can have you reassess what you are connected to in terms of social groups now. And that means, do I fit in anymore, or should I fit in, or is that even a thing I'm interested in? And so this, if you go back to the introduction, I was talking about these sacred cows and what it is that we might need to question. So there could be something here about friendships that needs to be re-examined. Friendships or groups that you hang out with, groups that you share ideas with. Right, I'll leave it at that, Gemini. Good luck with all of that. I'll see you in the next video. Cancer, this is happening. The new moon is happening with Venus in your money house. That is, in principle, really good. So it looks like there's some either solutions or at least lack of big problems in the house of money. Now that, of course, depends on your chart. The second house is income. It's money that you earn from your work, or especially if you're an employee, or it can be your stuff. For example, I am Cancer rising, and I am going through my stuff, selling what I need to or can, and I'm storing or giving away the rest of it. So maybe you are too. Maybe there's something there as the Venus ruled South Node goes through the house of home and where we live and what we need to feel secure. Anyway, if it's not your case, that can also be something to do with your values. And so there can be a change in terms of what you find important. And that, of course, can be connected to your stuff and also to your income. So maybe there's something that you're exchanging or doing differently around how you earn money, particularly because you've got Jupiter in the 11th house, got Uranus in the 11th house. That's about your hopes for the future, your dreams for the future. And it's also a money house. It's where the money comes in from the thing that you do if you work for yourself, which many Cancers do with Aries in the 10th house. And so there's Chiron there in the 10th house. Chiron is reflecting on what it is that you do, how you do it, how you show up to the world. That can be where you need to overcome shyness or a sense of inadequacy, imposter syndrome, all of the above. Chiron is in trine to Venus at this point, and so that can be a really interesting thing to explore. The new moon is in trine to that North Node, so that can be something that you want to do in a new way in terms of what you value or what you'd like to earn, so that's bringing out something new in terms of your work or your career or your social status, for that matter. This can have something to do with family as well. Second house is also family, and you've got Mercury and Mars in the 3rd house of siblings and cousins and aunts and uncles and all the extended family, and also that can be friends as well. Jupiter is also friends, helpful people in your life. When Jupiter goes into the 11th, it can, and that's the house of the joy of Jupiter, since today I seem to be talking about all the joys. And Jupiter in the 11th house is in its joy, and it brings really helpful friends, people who are well placed to assist you for things. And that's certainly been my experience. I hope the rest of you Cancers are also finding great help from your friends. So I think I'll leave it at that. We're going to go deeper into other aspects of this when I come back and talk about the Pisces full moon that's coming up on the 31st of August. I'm going to keep this one short. I'll see you in the next video. Bye-bye, Cancer. Leo, this is, of course, happening in your 1st house. This is all about you and what it is that you need to show up and shine in. what it is that you might like to do in terms of how you appear to the world, or how you most especially express yourself to the world. Now, Chiron is in your 9th house in a trine to Venus. And of course, you've had Venus in your 1st house since the 5th of June. So this is a long ongoing story, but Venus is now conjunct this moon. So the question's getting deep, and then it's connecting somehow to the 9th house of your purpose. So maybe there's something here now. And the 9th house is also, what do you believe? So we come back to the notion of sacred cows. So which sacred cows are you willing to sacrifice or let go of, put out to pasture? And so here we have quite a lot around your sense of the future. 9th house is about what am I doing with my life? And the new moon in the 1st house is very much how you're doing that. How are you showing up in that? You've got Jupiter in the 10th house, really helpful. It's going to be there all the way through mid-May, 3rd week of May, 2024. Uranus is going to be going back and forth through there for another couple of years. So things are really changing for you, and Uranus is squaring this new moon. So perhaps there's something in you that you're realizing about what it is that you want, how you want to show up in the world, in your career, in your marital status, in your sense of ambition. So a very interesting time. It has been very good for Leo lately. I find that the energy has been really helpful, very supportive in terms of, at the very least, your worldly success. It seems to have been very well supported lately. You have Mars and Mercury in the 2nd house of money, your values, your family. So there can be quite a lot of busyness there. Now, Mars in the 2nd house can show either a dynamism around the things that you need to feel support, or it can bring up some challenges around money or around family. That Mars is opposing Neptune from other people's money. Don't loan money right now. I think it's a good idea to, or if necessary, wait until Mars clears. Yeah, just don't loan money. Wait till Mars goes in the 4th if you need to loan anybody some money. Obviously, if you can't avoid it, don't. Do what you have to do. But there's something here that suggests that there can be some confusion around money and some regrets potentially with Neptune there in opposition, especially as the moon will move into opposition to Saturn from that same place. So also equally, if you have to negotiate for income, a new salary or something like that, be very careful. Saturn is retrograde in the 8th house. Pluto's in the 6th of conflicts and contracts and all kinds of things. 3rd house is also a house of contracts, and so ruled by Venus retrograde. So it's a difficult time to negotiate. It won't be necessarily very settled. So do what you have to do, but if you can avoid it, postpone until September, mid-September. All right. Good luck with all of that, Leo. And I'll see you in the next video. So Virgo, this is actually very interesting for you because you've got quite a lot of the energy in the behind the scenes area of your life. So there's probably a lot of new ideas around things, potentially even a new relationship that is coming in through the 12th house. That can be a foreigner or somebody that you've met in a situation where it's difficult to connect with the 12th house. There can be issues around being able to be public with a relationship. Let's put it that way. That can be simply because this timing is off, or it can be that the person is otherwise engaged. So leave that one up to you. You've got Chiron in the 8th house, which is the house of intimacy. Again, that doesn't have to mean this is about relationship. It can also be around your sense of yourself. You might be feeling a renewed sense of what it is that you desire in terms of your spiritual life as well, and deeper understanding of yourself, especially with Mars and Mercury in the 1st house. There's going to be quite a lot of awareness of yourself. That's a strong Mercury in its rulership and exalted in your 1st house. And so that's going to be an interesting couple of months, because Mars continues to go through their retrograde and then only leaves your 1st house in early October. So it retrogrades on the 23rd of August. So an interesting time to reflect on yourself, what it is that you need. Pay attention to dreams. That's the 12th house as well. Pay attention to omens and things that appear. You have big aspirations. You have a great sense of what it is that you'd like to do, something completely new and different potentially. But you'll see that when Jupiter stations, both Uranus and Jupiter are stationing. Uranus will station on the 28th of August to go retrograde. Jupiter stations retrograde on the 4th of September. So whatever you're planning for the future, that might include studies, or it can just be about what it is that you see your purpose is in life, what your life purpose, that might be something that you need to revise over the next couple of months, or it feels like it's just not panning out for you. It doesn't mean you're not on the right track. It just means that there's some things that are going to be, they're going to need to go over. You're going to have to go over things again and try and figure out what it is that still needs to be sorted out before things really kick in. But don't worry, I think that having Mercury in your first house for a couple of months, more than 2 months, is actually really empowering, very good for you. Mars will move into the 2nd, then the 3rd and 4th. So that will also shift things around, change the energy substantially for you. Right, I'm going to leave it at that, make this one a short one. Have a great couple of weeks, and I'll see you in the next video, Virgo. Libra, this is happening in your 11th house of friends, your wishes for the future, what it is that you'd like to see in your life in the future. And it's a really lovely place to have this because it's very optimistic. It's a very bright sun in Leo. It's a empowering sun in Leo, and lots of new starts with things. Now, from the house of the 8th house of your shared resources and potentially psychological fears or things that might be feeling like they are confusing for you, potentially things that are hidden, unconscious processes where you also, the 8th and the 12th are similar that way, where you also have Mars and Mercury. There might be some stuff that's coming up from family baggage that could be like inherited stuff, or things that you have to deal with that are connected to people in your family that are causing you a little bit of strife. It doesn't look like it will be too bad, but this will be something that you're going to be dealing with for the next couple of months. That might be the thing that is actually holding you back, because this is in a square. Uranus is in a square to what it is that you want to do for the future. So it doesn't mean that things can't pan out for you. It means probably that there'll be a lot of readjusting before you really see clearly. That applies to all of us, but for you, it's really with regards to your future, potentially also friends as well. Maybe you're starting to discover things. This can be secrets that are discovered, things that become apparent around friends or around groups that you are attached to. That can be even politics, around the political groups that you are attached to. Remember to check your sacred cows. Are you blindly following a political group that you haven't questioned and you believe are somehow anointed by God to represent the truth of life? Could you question that? This could be one of those things. The 11th house is a house of politics as well. So it's the 9th, but the 11th is where it's expressed in the world. So these all could be things that would be an opportunity for you to shake things up, that might give you a fresh sense of direction in your life. Yeah, it's nice. Venus is in a sextile to your sign, to your rising sign. Of course, she rules your chart. She rules Libra. And so that's really lovely, even when she's retrograde. So all the, you still get the juicy stuff of Venus, even when she's retrograde. And of course, you have Chiron in the 7th house and the North Node that can be adjusting around relationships and even recognizing where you, God forbid, might be the reason that relationships are not working out terribly well, or that there might be a need to say sorry. Now, Libra, you probably say sorry a lot more than average, but it could be also that you're recognizing where things are not working for you and that you need to let go of a pattern of codependency. We've spoken about that in the video about the nodal axis in Aries and Libra. I'm going to leave it there to keep it really short. Good luck with all that, Libra, and I'll see you in the next video. So Scorpio, this is happening in the house of career for you. So we've got the new moon and Venus in your 10th house. That's your sense of your big goals in life, your ambitions for your career or social ambitions. Again, it's about self-expression. This the new moon in Leo is asking you to show up in a way that is quite unique to you. You have Jupiter in the 7th house. So you've got lots of really good things going on in your relationship area. Although Jupiter in the 7th can also cause some trouble. It's not necessarily, that's especially in the Indian interpretation of the Jupiter placements. Jupiter in the 7th doesn't necessarily bring ease and abundance in relationship. It can actually be a challenge in relationship. And that's often because there can be a difficulty in making good decisions. There can be some challenges with the spouse. That would have to depend on your natal chart. I'm not going to go into that now, but let's just say there's going to be a lot of interest and a lot of activity in the 7th house, which is business partnerships, life partners, very important friends, people you see every day. And you have Chiron in the 6th house, which can represent issues, challenges, or need to heal something with regards to either your day-to-day habits or the way that you work, and also colleagues and employees, if you have that. And then you've also got Mars and Mercury in the house of your hopes for the future. That's the 11th house, the house of friends as well. And that can be something that has you reflecting on groups and people that you associate with, what it is that you'd like for the future, especially when Mercury goes retrograde. There can be a need to reevaluate things with regards to your social connections. Again, checking into the notion of the sacred cows, what it is that you might believe about your career, perhaps for you, that requires some adjustment based on other people in your life, relationships, or business goals, for example. That can also be Jupiter in the 7th, especially with Pluto in the 3rd. Right, I'm not going to go too deep into this. If you do have any issues around friendships, remember the moon is going to be opposing Saturn soon after this new moon. She's going to move into Virgo and then oppose Saturn briefly, just really briefly in the hours after. So that might illustrate something about what you're realizing you need to do. It's going to set you up, kind of set you apart briefly from your friends, which Mars can also do in the 11th house. And so there might be something here that you can learn. So this is an opportunity to be humble and to pay attention and listen to other people, listen to what other people might need. Where that Chiron in the 6th house can really help you perhaps understand how your way of being in your day-to-day life might actually be bringing you some difficulties in terms of your career or in terms of your ambitions, one way or another, whether that be with your personal health or with the way that you are in relationship to people around you. Pardon me for the coughing. I still have this endless cold after 2 weeks. So there we are. So Scorpio, make the best of this new moon cycle, and I'll see you in the next video. Sagittarius, this is happening in your 9th house. That's a lovely place to have a new moon. The sun is in its joy in the 9th house. It's there alongside Venus. Venus is retrograde. And so there's a lot of things that you're going to be reviewing. You're going to be reviewing what's been going on since about mid-June, which is a great opportunity to reconsider perhaps what it is that you believe or what it is that you want for your future, what you believe your role is in the future. Now, this has been something you've heard me say many times over the last few weeks, because it's been a very prominent feature in your chart with Venus since the 5th of June in the 9th house. You also have Jupiter, your ruler, in the 6th house of your everyday life. That can improve health issues. and it can improve issues around your day-to-day life and schedule, bring you a lot more optimism around what you do. And that Venus and the new moon can really contribute to that as well. There's something here with the Saturn bringing you more stability. That's not necessarily easy, because that's also a psychological house. And here we have Mars in opposition to Neptune. So there's something perhaps in terms of your career ambitions that requires you to reflect on how that might be affecting your sense of happiness, your well-being, or your sense of stability at home. And then, of course, Mercury in the 10th house. It's a great place to have Mercury for reconsidering or reflecting on or communicating issues around work and what it is that you'd like to experience at work. It's in a supportive trine to Jupiter briefly at the time of this new moon. And Mars is in a trine to Uranus. So something that you're doing every day that requires some kind of readjustment for the way that you show up at work, or the way that you show up in terms of your ambitions and your sense of the what it is that you do, your social status, perhaps. Chiron is in the 5th house. There may be some issue around how you're connecting to your children, or to a lover or something you love, like a hobby or some activity that you love. Or there might be something that you're realizing you could do better or differently to allow yourself to enjoy that much more, that you overcome things that you realize, especially in terms of relationship or in terms of the things that you really desire, not just in terms of like desiring sexually or in terms of your pleasures, but also what you desire for your life, because that's the 9th house where Venus is. That might require some kind of adjustment from the 5th house of where you are taking chances. You know, your Sagittarius, after all, that's one of the reasons Sagittarius is known for being such a chancer, because you've got Mars ruling your 5th house in Aries. So Chiron there might show you one way or another where that's been working out for you or not. I'm going to leave it at that. I'd have to see your natal chart to know more about that, but good luck with all that, Sagittarius. If you're in the middle of taking a big chance, take a good deep breath. Things will all become clear in the next few months, weeks even. Don't stress. Enjoy. All right, so Capricorn, you have this happening in your 8th house of other people's money. That's also the house of intimacy. Venus in the house of intimacy is always quite nice. She's giving you an extra long journey through there. And that is from the 5th of June all the way through the 8th of October. So now Venus is retrograde at the time of this new moon, and the new moon might be showing something about how you are in terms of your connections, deep, intimate connections that can be actually sexual connection, intimacy, or it can be just simply emotional or psychological intimacy. This can also be issues around your psychological nature, because it's in trine to Chiron from the 4th house. And that 4th house represents your mind and what it is that what you could call psychology, or what makes you happy, what makes you feel secure and contented on a psychological or emotional basis. And so that can actually tie in. That would have to depend on your chart. So I can't generalize that, but it can be something that has had you feeling a bit down, or there might be something at home that needs to be resolved so that connects better with your marital situation. Or it can also be that the marital situation improves this whole issue, highlights something that you're really understanding now, and that actually can be a source of healing for you at home. They let you back in from the doghouse, as it were. You've got Jupiter in the 5th house. So certainly it looks like love and enjoyment of life is really good for Capricorns for all this time from May through May 2024. So that's pretty nice anyway. And your ruler's in the 3rd house of your everyday goals and so on. And so that's quite interesting as well, because it might be changing your sense of goals, your sense of what it is that you want to do, or that can be with regards to siblings or something like that. And that's soon going to oppose the moon. When the moon, just after this new moon, the moon goes into your 9th house. So there might be something here where you're recognizing as a new goal for the future, for how you see yourself showing up. That Mars is trining Pluto at this time as well, from the 1st house to the 9th. Something that you're reflecting on in terms of how you show up in the world and what you feel is your purpose in life. It looks like much more of your energy is focused on yourself, though, with the North Node in the 4th. So this could very much be about your psychological and intimate needs. So take good care of yourself there, Capricorn. I think it's going to be all right because you've got this lovely earthy trine going on there, and that will be very supportive. So make the most of that, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye, Capricorn. So Aquarius, you've got this happening in your house of relationship. How lovely. You for sure have had a lot going on because you've had this journey with Pluto in the spring, and then before Pluto left the 1st house to go back into your 12th house, Venus moved into the 7th. And so now you've got Venus connected to that new moon, and she is showing up something that you might need to know or understand about your relationships and what's been going on since June. And this can also have something to do with issues around how you share money and resources with a partner. With Mars there, it can be tricky. That's not easy. When Mars goes into the 8th house, that can bring about difficulties or disputes or challenges in terms of just marriage in general, but it can also be around inheritances or things that have to do with siblings. You've got Chiron in the 3rd house in Aries, ruled by that Mars, and that can bring in, pardon me, sorry about that cough, can't seem to shake it off. That Chiron in the 3rd house can be something to do with some need for healing around your siblings, cousins, family members. And that can also be around connected to communications about things. So this could be a really interesting time to explore whether you really communicate what you need in relationships, because you've got Mercury there too, really powerfully in the 8th house. And that Mercury is in conjunct the Chiron from the 3rd. Right. And so you've got Saturn, your ruler, in the 2nd house of your sense of worth and values and money. The moon will be opposing that soon after this new moon. So about the 4th degree of Virgo to the 4th degree of Pisces, the moon will be in opposition, just really briefly. And so issues around what you need to feel secure, that can also be issues around family. 2nd house can be family, can come up for you, but it'll be very fleeting. But it can have something to do with your emotional needs again. So this might be something you need to practice expressing, especially with the North Node going through the 3rd house. And so Jupiter in the 4th, generally speaking, is very helpful, makes you feel positive around your overall sense of security and also just home. But we do still have this rather pesky Uranus going through there. So things may have a background feeling of being unsettled nonetheless. So good luck with all of that, Aquarius, and I'll see you in the next video. Pisces, we have this, I say we because I have a Pisces sun and lots of other things. And we have this new moon and Venus in the 6th house of everyday work. Hey, it's health as well. Maybe I can finally figure out a way to stop coughing and get rid of this permacold. Venus is going retrograde through there. So there's something that you're going to be learning about your everyday habits as well as your work and how that pans out for you. That can be around obstacles that you have felt are preventing you from getting on with things in the way that you might like, either through your health, for example, or through your your working day, your habits in general, issues around contracts and agreements. This kind of thing will be reflected in this period of Venus retrograde, but it's coming to a kind of a peak at this point around the 16th. And so listen to the introduction for more about how that might shape up, because there might be something about what you might be holding on to in terms of your everyday life that you really need to shake off, that you really need to let go of, in such a way that you can improve your, especially when Venus goes direct again, improve your everyday experience of life. And fundamentally, it can make you more happy and productive. You do have Mars and Mercury in the 7th house of other people, partnerships of all kinds. That includes business partners, business in general, so exchanges with clients and so on. There can be some disagreements with those people, or a need to be more stringent, more strenuous with them. Now, that's in opposition to Neptune, which is still in your 1st house for the past 12 years, since March 2011. That has perhaps made you not terribly clear about people or situations, and this will perhaps feel a little stuck around what direction to take. Don't worry too much about this, because it's definitely going to shift a lot when Mars moves out of the 7th and away from that Neptune. It can be that things feel really chaotic for a while, because your ruler, Jupiter, on the 4th of September is going to be retrograde in the 3rd house of your everyday life. So that there's been a lot of busyness, right? So you've got Venus in the 6th and then Jupiter in the 3rd, incredibly busy with all kinds of little mundane things, nitty-gritty things. And that can feel like it's just not really going in the direction you want. Mercury will also be retrograding in the 7th. And that will affect your 4th house of home as well, because that's Mercury retrograde will affect what's going on at home by rulership. And so Uranus is also stationing retrograde by the 28th of August. So there's going to be at that 23rd degree, by the way. So the 15th, where we see Jupiter now and where we see Uranus now, that's the farthest that they get in 2023. Then they station retrograde very soon. And they're going to cover a lot of territory. We'll speak about that in another video. And that could be something that changes your neighborhood, changes your environment, your everyday experience quite dramatically. And maybe you'll be like me and you pack your stuff up in storage and be a nomad for a little while. Why not? We can exchange addresses and hang out. And the 2nd house is where we find Chiron. And so that can be issues around money or your self-worth that are being reflected upon now in ways that are going to bring you answers, especially come February, but things that you've already covered, you'll start to feel much more comfortable with it when Chiron goes forward again. So Chiron Chiron retrogrades for like 5 months. So it's not a big deal, not as immediately felt, say, as Venus or Mars or Mercury. But nonetheless, it's in the money house, in the house of self-esteem. Check out where you are your own worst enemy around your finances, around your sense of self-worth, around investments and stuff like that. And if you're anything like me, I can see you all nodding your heads. So there we are, Pisces. I'll see you very soon in the next video. Enjoy. Bye-bye.